Thursday, January the 11th, 2024, at 5:30 p.m. Call the meeting to order. Roll call from my left.
Burns here.
Jacobs here.
Foster here.
Key here.
Evans here. And our mayor is out sick. So y'all can talk to him about that.
He has the flu.
He's got the flu. Do we have any citizens' comments?
No, ma'am.
All right, new business, 1A. Discuss and/or take action on recommended propositions from the Charter Review Committee. I think we all got those.
So as you all know, the Charter Review Commission did these recommendations, presented them to you in December. You've now had time to kind of go through them and think about them. Kathy and the entire Charter Review Commission, and Kathy, if you haven't done that, if everybody will introduce themselves. No, I know everybody knows each other, but just for the sake of the public, if they're listening to this tomorrow, they're here to answer questions. As the chair, Kathy got voluntold to sit at the table, but she has her backup here if there is anything else that anybody can answer. This really is a workshop. Mine and Janet's goal is when we get to the January meeting to have ironed out most of the kinks. We have to call the election at the January meeting. So any changes after that, the election has to be called by February the 15th, so we would have to call a special meeting. So in this workshop format, we have a lot of time to talk about the different recommendations, any recommendations you guys sent to me. So we're going to start with the Charter Review Commission, and if you don't have any questions, great. But if you do, they can give you a little history about how they came to that, because they spent every Monday night for months, hour and a half to 2 hours at a time, going page by page, discussing, cussing and discussing, having hard conversations and having easy conversations, coming back and talking about it some more. So, and working with Blake as well through Janet and I to make sure they had good language for whatever it was, and that was kind of the new standard. So I'll turn it over to y'all.
Well, I like to thank the group for doing a good job on this, and sadly, there were just a lot of, I thought, not a lot, but some wording in the charter that could have been cleaned up so that it would have less confusion in terms of trying to interpret it.
Yeah.
And I think you've done a lot to make that happen. I appreciate that.
And in addition to this, and I don't know that everyone knows this, Verna took on the job of editing, and you all will get a copy of that prior to the meeting so you can kind of see the types of edits. Commas, misspelled words, added words where there wasn't, where it said mayor, council, instead of mayor or, someone had sent me one of those. But this team went line by line and looked at every single edit that Verna has recommended and approved those as well. So
Okay. That's good.
some of that, Ken, you're going to see they really have even fixed more
Yeah.
because it just over time,
It is.
you know, we add a
Yeah.
word, we take out a word, but just the nature of the beast.
I have that printed here, and we'll send it to you tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Just to start looking at it. It's a lot.
Okay. Do we just go by
We can go one by one, sure.
305? So y'all taking out the rights and want to put in duties, or is that your is that your suggestion? Perform the duties?
I'm still mulling over it. Mostly because I keep looking it up. It's one of those things where either way is probably right. I think the thing I keep looking at, though, is that it's like the mayor has duties and the mayor pro tem is temporary. So it's like when you have a right, it's like you have to honor the rights of other people. A duty is you just do it. Mm-hmm. And so the person is kind of like putting in a substitute teacher. Mm-hmm. Substitute teacher, the teacher has duties, and then the substitute teacher comes in and just basically fills in. They cannot do all the duties of what's going on. So that's why I look at it and I keep going. I mulled it back and forth. I looked it up. There are different charters that have it as duties. But me, from a personal perspective, I keep running back against it.
I will tell you that Kathy was not at the meeting where we discussed this the second time. This is one we discussed and then came back later and rediscussed, and Kathy was not at that meeting. And they had a very healthy discussion about why one word might be ready better than the other. If Ann or Gilbert or someone else wants to kind of fill in, the commission did vote to move forward with the language you see in front of you as a group. But if you want more details on that, Ann or Gilbert or someone, y'all can stand up and talk, might be able to give you some more details on why they went back and forth about rights or duties and why they chose what they ended up choosing. That was our last meeting, the wrap up, so.
Yes, and I was sick.
Do y'all have an opinion? I mean, rights or duties, does it matter? I mean,
The pro tem would not have any other more rights than the mayor, they're just performing the duties, as I would understand it.
Yeah.
It's a temporary kind of fill-in, for whatever reason. So I don't have any problem with the way that they've reworded it personally.
I like the rewording.
okay. I mean,
It's good, I like it.
Here's what we're looking for from council tonight. I need some head nods, some thumbs up. You are happy with the way it's worded. We're not making any decisions. We're not going to, but you absolutely can give us some feedback so we can work with Blake to make sure we have the language right. Ultimately, the decision is up to council.
Are we adding in that last sentence as well? Is that an add-in? The mayor pro tem, or
Yes.
the right to vote, blah, blah, blah. So
Yes.
that's an add-in as
And the
well.
reason that was added in is because in the state law, it says mayor pro tems retain the right to vote. But that became a question mark because people didn't see it in the writing. And so we decided to put it in because that clears it up.
I'm assuming that there's been some wording change because of new state laws, is that correct?
There is some. We tried to designate that. I don't know, I don't remember if this specific one was a state law, but there.
It's always been on the books.
You will
This
see
was
that
on
it says we have to change this due to state law in the little red box. I tried to make a point to point those out,
Yeah, this
but
was not. This whole thing was.
I'm glad to see that last sentence added. I had a couple of
yeah.
people question, well,
yeah,
why is Rita voting?
with some ambiguity there.
Yeah.
And this
Well,
helps
that's,
just,
that is one part of the statement. That's only the first part, and it says, "and," but does not have the power to veto legislation while temporarily acting as mayor, which I think that's where she was trying to say between the rights and the duties, because you can't do everything that the mayor does in a temporary setting. Only some of the things that the mayor does in a temporary setting.
Correct.
Yeah. I think you've done good.
so does everybody like the way that one is written? Support? We will have to have official proposition language, so that's why Janet and I are looking for some, yes, we're good, and then we can move to the next one.
So should we give,
Just a
It's
head
not a
nod.
vote, she just wants.
I just need to know, yep, look, this body language is perfect. Hooray, yep, we're good, Angie.
So we can go to the next one.
Vacancies, forfeitures, and filing of vacancies.
The reason why we decided to do this was because there are only 2 dates when you can vote. It's November and it's May. Back in 2008, when I was on, they came up with uniform vote thing for dates. So it used to be whenever there was a problem, then you just call an election and do it. And then they came in and said no. They said from now on, it's just going to be these 2 dates. That's it. So anything happens, those are your 2 dates.
Who said that? There's only
State.
the state. So
Yes.
this really is more of a state thing. It
It
didn't say
is.
that. That's why I was looking for notes about that.
It
But,
is a state law.
Gotcha. So we're just adding that in there for clarification.
Yeah, so that you know that if you call it, you can only have it in November and
Okay,
May.
so really nothing to agree to there.
I didn't realize that was state
Maybe
law.
right along.
Yeah, it is. It went in while I was in.
Yeah.
That's how old it is.
Moving on, passage of ordinance in general. We just added the one word, is that right, and online, or 2 words?
Yeah, we always worry that your newspaper disappears. That is happening across the country. It happened to us in Rowlett. We had a paper, and then one day we didn't have a paper. And here, it says we're gonna put it in the paper. We updated several that were just not changing the gist of the ordinance. We made it and online, but for this one, because it had to do with penalties, our ordinance says you have to publish these, But if our newspaper goes away, we are also already putting them online, so we're just adding that to this.
Okay.
And that way, people who only do newspaper are notified. People who only are online are
We
notified.
debated only online or online and
Right.
newspaper. That was a very healthy conversation among this group, but here's where we settled.
Okay.
Moving on, 4.01, city manager.
This one is because sometimes it's not reasonable to expect them to move within a certain date, so it's better to give the responsibility to the city council to figure it out.
I would like to, and I like that it outlined in the employment contract so that there's still no question. There's no question as to when that's gonna happen. There's still a deadline with that. However, I would like to discuss adding, but no more than 1 year. Because you could have, so I'm just saying, some council, somebody comes in and says, well, let's do it 2 years from now. Let us know,
That'll
no,
happen.
that's a little bit excessive, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so I think we should say, but no more than 1 year. in my
Right,
opinion.
I agree there.
Ordinarily, 3 years ago, I would have said, you're right, a year is very reasonable. And then we had lockdown. And
Interesting.
And who expected that? Who would think that we'd have to have a contingency in place for, sorry, you're in your house for 2 years.
I don't think that happened, but I still
You don't
think it
think
should.
that people were,
I don't think you were combined, that you could not move, could not do anything for 2 years. There was no laws or rules that
No,
says
no.
that you couldn't move during COVID, or that you couldn't have bought a house or sold a house. I'm not saying it wasn't any easier. It was locked down in the beginning, sure. But I still think, everybody has their own opinion. You can hear whatever yours. I just do think 1 year, I think, is reasonable. I think if we had a weird situation like COVID again, I don't know, I guess we'd figure it out then, but I just think that it's reasonable. It needs to be we hire our city manager to come into my city, live where I live, drive the roads I drove, and I expect them to be here. I do expect that they have lives and they have things that they need to do, and that's a reasonable amount of time, but I can't expect world happenings for that situation. I have to live in this, and I think, in my opinion, 1 year is more than reasonable.
we could say 1 year, barring extenuating circumstances, or, something like that.
Well,
Because this was definitely,
Floods, hazards, and Mother Nature or something like
I
that.
I will
Be
tell
at
you
your
that-
I don't
insurance
want that
policy.
either.
This group had a healthy discussion about this one and what happens if, right? They didn't go pandemic, but we did, you guys are welcome to fill in. We talked about, what happens if I have your city manager had that you hire them in April and they have a junior that they really need to finish, you might give a little more than a year wiggle room. I don't know, that's just the discussion that was had and how this ended up being what it is. That allows council to, if there has to be, for some reason, more than a year, you have that ability.
well, I'm with her, because the last time we had this issue that come up, there was all kinds of problems. He just bought a house, he wasn't gonna lose money, there was always some excuse. So I'm good with a year. And if you got a kid that needs to graduate, then maybe it's not the time to change jobs.
Well, it's not that. It's not just that. I think maybe they could make some type of. It's kind of like where they came a little bit earlier. The kids still had their house there.
Sure.
Maybe they moved here and was here by a year, but then the kid gets graduated. So I totally agree with that. I do, but I can hear with what ifs all day long. I just don't want the point of someone not being here. I think your city manager should be here, and I think a year is more than reasonable
And
for an
you've made-
average thing. And I that's
And
just
you've
my-
made concessions to be
Yeah,
here.
absolutely wasn't about me or anybody else.
A lot of discussion went in on this.
It did.
A lot of, like you say,
Table
a lot of circumstances that can happen
Yeah.
to make things hard. And I think the majority of us felt like that, I know I did, so let me just speak for myself. But the fact that the council is out to find the best person for the job. And we want the most knowledgeable, educated person we can get, which I think we've got one of them. But you don't know what the future lies.
Right.
And
Some
this is
days.
a negotiating power that you're fixing to cut out completely if you put a date stamp on it. Because it may take some negotiations to get that person we want and need. And we may have to, or the council may have to make adjustments in order to make it happen. And I'm sure every council member in here is gonna have to agree on it, or the majority is gonna have to agree on it. And to go over a year, or over 6 months, or whatever, if the person comes up and sells their house in due time and still hasn't moved down here, they've got another reason why they can't move right now. What's the council gonna do there?
Just not hire that person,
Look
that's
for
all I can
someone. I think you have negotiation power there that you need to keep in mind, that you need to hold on to.
I think the short way to say it is it puts the advantage into the city council's hands.
Or disadvantage, depending on how it works. And we've had that in the past where people, the city manager was supposed to be here within a reasonable amount of time. And it kept on and on and on, and then he sells his house, which that should have been reasonable, then that wasn't reasonable enough, then he moved down
Let
to
me ask
another.
this question there.
So when is that?
Let me ask this question.
I
there.
think their
How
goal
many-
was-
How many of you city council people got to play a part in that?
I think
That's
their
okay.
I
point,
agree.
The
I agree
council,
with
this
that.
puts it in the council's hands.
I think their point was to get rid of
Not the mayor.
reasonable, the
Yes.
word reasonable, because then it isn't reasonable, right? Only council can decide what that time is as a group of 6, right?
Yeah, no, 3. It's 3 decided.
It is,
Well,
it is actually three.
It's not, I can't do anything about what
Yeah.
happened, we're
I
talking
agree.
about
I
into
just
the
wanna
future.
prevent that for the future. Yes, I think that we
Yeah.
have a great group. And I
Yeah.
think the group we have
Yeah.
today
Yeah.
is wonderful. And I think that we have,
Yeah.
you know, I'm just trying to help the future.
Yeah.
Because again, you hire a city manager to be a part of your city, to be here with your city, to have the pains that you have, to go through the bumps that you have. And how can they do that if they're not here?
Isn't
But
that
all agreed.
when you negotiate
100%.
their contract,
Well.
it needs to be made clear.
Agreed. And we will, and that's in there.
No.
You know,
They
that-
did.
I'll be honest with you, we were trying to throw it down the road. Honesty, it was like, you guys decide.
The
So what
decision-
about you two? How are you on this? Do you think it should be within a year? Where are you guys on it? Should it be added?
I like the language as y'all have changed it here. I feel like there's another maybe more appropriate place for that timeline to be documented, what council's general expectation should be. And maybe that's in the employee manual that y'all are working on currently.
Yep.
But I like the wording in the charter, the way that y'all have changed it.
Well, I don't, but
Can I ask you a question?
Perfect.
I'm just throw something out here. If this had been in during the time when you guys hired Jeff, and there had been a employment contract that said,
There
you
was.
will do this.
no, there
This
wasn't.
isn't about
There
a certain
was.
person, though.
But there,
So there
but-
was,
hold
but it
on.
didn't work?
But no, wait. There was a contract, but it didn't state in its employment contract when.
That's
Like,
what I meant.
That's what, well, reasonable.
Yeah.
But that was
No,
the
no,
charter.
reasonable,
That
I'm
was,
talking
we
about, did
defaulted
it
to
have
the
a
charter,
deadline?
which was reasonable, and reasonable isn't a definition, which
I
is
mean,
why.
I don't both
yeah.
ways, it's just, I guess I'm
Yeah,
having.
which is
trust
why
issues with
they're
the
trying
past
to
go
say
forward.
It
it
depends.
is left to
It
council.
depends on how the majority of the council defines reasonable. And that's
100%.
why it should have 1 year in there. If the council wants to change it with majority vote or discuss it, they can do that. But I really think there needs to be a timeline in there.
I do too.
Just keep in mind, if you put in the charter 1 year, you can't change it.
Well,
They
that's
have to
okay.
be here within 1 year. That, I think that was
I
their.
don't think that's unreasonable.
Yeah, I don't care.
Knowing what we've faced in the past, I don't think it's unreasonable.
No, I don't.
Well,
Okay, let me ask.
I go back and forth.
What about instead of within a year? What about if within 14 months?
What's the M14 that spans the 60?
No, okay.
What if I hire
No,
someone
no,
in
no.
February instead of April?
No,
I mean,
no.
that's
I
like
think-
keeps
I think
going.
Okay, I have a
the
reason
question.
behind this, okay? If you have somebody who's in school and they need to finish school, and you ended up hiring somebody in the middle of summer, you know in 14 months' time, they're gonna be out of school. And that's it. So it would be within 14
There's
months.
other reasons besides
Yeah.
the school, buying a
Just
house,
remember,
selling a
whatever
house.
you put in the charter, that's the hard deadline.
Well-
Then, a city manager could come to you and says, well, your charter says a year, I have a year. Right?
Yeah.
If it's out, the reason if it's outlined by your employment contract is so important, it puts the negotiating power in council's hands. If it says within a year,
He has a year.
Any city manager is going to argue, but your charter says I have a year.
Well, you know, when we interviewed all the people for, city manager, no one had a problem with being here in a year.
No.
Nobody did. And one fact, one guy had 3 kids, he said, I just want a place to get my kids settled in.
Yeah.
I mean, no one had a problem with it. So, I'm good with the year, and that's what it is. Y'all can do what you want to.
I prefer we put a time limit on it 1 year.
And I don't know if the people out there vote on it or not, but
They may or may not, but
Well-
y'all gotta give me some kind of consensus tonight, so.
Can I have a
Oh,
suggestion?
hold on, now it's their turn, Kathy.
Okay.
So you're just here in case they have a question. Now it's their turn to talk through it. All right, guys, listen. Right now is council's time to talk through this. If they have additional questions, they will ask those of the commission, and then y'all can provide input. But right now, it is this group's chance to negotiate. Y'all had your chance.
I'm saying that it's in the charter, like, you can't
Huh?
mention, like you said, that they have a year.
I
go back and
I
forth.
really feel like that's, any kind of a number should be documented somewhere outside of the charter that gives a guideline.
That's what she's saying, you can't, I mean, it can't.
You
be
could in
anywhere.
the personnel policy, so in the personnel policy, it requires the city manager to reside in the area. And you could, in the personnel policy, within a year, but
And then that
again,
gives the
the
council-
contract still overrides. The one question with that, Jennifer, is that the contract would still override. If my contract says I have 18 months in the personnel policy, it's very common for city managers, executive directors to negotiate more than what the personnel policy is, right? More vacation time, more sick time, more whatever time.
Sure.
I don't want to be totally democratic about this. I think 1 year should be there. I've lived through this once before, and if I were on council again and faced it again, 1 year, the city charter is really the only thing that we really had at some points in time to hang your hat on, and even that was interpreted differently by different people.
yeah.
So if you put it in the personnel manual, you put it here, you put it there, they'll say, it's not in the city charter, so the council can eventually, your city attorney says, well, the council can do whatever they want to do. So if this boils down to what is the majority vote of the council. So I think we put it in there clearly, and then the council can live with it.
This is what Blake recommended?
This is what the commission is recommending. And they had a lot of healthy conversation about it as well. How much power should council have, right? Should it be in there? And at the end of the day, it really shook out that council should be able to decide what is right for the perfect candidate without it saying in the charter 6 months, 1 year, while getting rid of reasonable, right? Because reasonable does not have a definition. It's whatever your opinion is, but it's the contract that you have to default back to. This would force the employment contract of that person, and they work under an employment contract at the will of council to outline how soon they had to move here. They have to live here. It clearly says they have to live here, but that
And
the council,
the employment contract passes with just a majority vote,
Yep.
it does, yes.
not a supermajority, not just.
And even
just the
Blake
majority.
ruled against our charter on that. I mean, he went this way or that way, whatever we need to say to make it the way they want it. So, because reasonable is.
Well, if his
Right,
contract,
of course, that's over,
that's the
right.
point. If his contract says reasonable, then
I think the
that
charter-
leaves it for negotiation.
Yeah. There's
But
no
if-
set limit.
But the charter said reasonable, I
If
don't
the-
think
yeah.
that his contract said anything,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Yeah.
it's the same thing, I think.
Probably the wording may have been very
It
similar.
was in the personnel agreement.
But-
It's not a contract, it's called a personnel agreement. It
So,
was in there.
so it said
If,
reasonable.
if the charter says as negotiated by city council and city council negotiates 3 months,
That's
then,
why the charter is so important to try to get it right.
Yeah, it is.
but to give yourself the flexibility.
They're appointed with majority plus, but their contract.
Oh.
So I would,
There, it actually, Janet pulled it, it says the city manager shall be appointed for an indefinite term and may be removed at the discretion, oh no, that's removal,
Yeah.
by a simple majority plus one.
oh,
Appointment is a majority. So,
I just know a lot of people were so disappointed in him not respecting the charter.
simple
or
majority plus
respecting,
one.
the citizens, because, I mean, that is very a very big deal in the city is that the city manager lives here. They may not listen to anything else, but that's what you heard.
So what were you reading? It said simple majority plus one?
That's what it takes to approve the contract of the city manager, which would be 4. Simple majority is 3, that would be 4. Of the 6.
So
Okay, well, we need to move on.
No, we
Yes or
don't, we
no?
can't move on until we know what you want the language to say.
Well, I'm saying term, 1 year, but I'm.
I'd say
that's just
1
me.
year.
I'm
If
too
if it's left at reasonable, I would vote against it.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely not reasonable.
It's not reasonable.
That's not it. So the question is, we're definitely changing it to say, as outlined in the employment contract as negotiated by the council, city
Yes.
council. That's definitely what they're asking. The question then is, do we want it to say, but no more than 1 year?
Yes,
Yes, I do.
we do.
So Jennifer
That's
has
mine.
given her recommendation, unless she's changed it. Cindy?
So it would say,
It would say, he need not be a resident of the city when appointed, but shall either reside in the city limits as outlined in the employment contract as negotiated by city council, or reside in the city limits as outlined in the employment contract as negotiated by city council, not outside of a year, or
What?
not longer than a year,
I don't write
or
that
something. Attorney will write the
I don't
physical
think it's
language,
either or. I
but
don't want the word either or in there. It should be reside within the city limits as outlined in the employment contract as negotiated by the city council, however, cannot be more than 1 year.
yeah, something. We'll figure that out.
That's
I
what I'm
understand
saying,
the
But I'm not saying that
intent.
that is what I mean.
I understand the intent and that we would have Blake write the physical language that says it cannot extend past 1 year. That agreement cannot extend past 1 year or whatever.
And that would help him probably. But, you know, that's my opinion.
I'll go back and forth. I mean, part of me wants it to be in there, but I can't live in the past. I can't live on what happened in the past.
And that's it. You're not writing a
The
charter
history
based on
tends-
past
The history
experience.
can tend to repeat itself, but then if it's simple majority, then it should have been 4
Yeah.
that signed that contract, or who
We
approved
never
that.
saw
contract.
Or that
contract.
approved
Oh,
it.
they never saw it.
We never saw it unfortunately for about 6 months.
I can't do anything about what happened. All I can do is going forward.
Well, that's what we're just trying to prevent.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
there's
know,
no
I
sense in
see it
But
both
you're-
ways, but then I hate to
you can't
limit
write a charter
myself,
on
or I
that.
can do,
I will
I can
give
do
you-
14 months
yeah.
or something, but again,
Yeah.
I hire them to be here though.
I will give
That's
you
my
some
biggest
advice.
thing,
Don't
too.
base how you write your charter on 1 or 2 experiences.
Right, that's what I'm saying, but at the same time, I
That's
mean,
the only
I
thing
want
that's
them
the only
here.
advice I
mean,
can
I
give
don't
you.
want to hire someone who don't live here, you know what I'm saying
Yeah.
too, so I kind of like, you know, what is reasonable, you know, so.
You can't use the word reasonable. because
No,
you
but I
can't.
mean, I'm just talking about in life in general, you know, without the past going on, if I hire a city manager today, I mean, I hire them to be here, I want them to be here, of course, as soon as, you know, possible, and, you know, there's, you know, I'm just trying to be, I'm just trying to.
Be
I'm
reasonable.
trying to be right, I'm trying to do the right thing, and just
Well,
trying to.
and here's the thing, and I probably shouldn't say this, but a city manager can wiggle that any way they want, right? They have to have an address here. There are city managers across the state that live in the city where they are, but they have another home.
Yeah.
That they go on the weekends, or they go, right? So there's a lot of gray already in there.
Still, a lot of them live in Rowlett.
Well, they live down at RV Park or you
I
have
can
the
give you a few,
UPS
but
address.
I
so-
think the goal of the commission was to put that onus back on city council to whatever 6 warm breathing bodies sat in those seats, they had the option without limiting that responsibility in the charter. But we cannot move on until I have some
We
kind of,
can circle back, right?
we can.
To kind of think
I
about it.
like the wording they came up with.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
what do you wanna, up or down? I'm gonna go with 1 year, a term. Yeah, I'm gonna do what you want to.
April, you want us to come back to it? You want
Yes.
to think about it?
Okay.
Okay, we'll think about it. The next one is municipal court. One part of our charter mentions an associate judge. It is not mentioned in this section. We have an associate judge. The municipal judge reports directly to council. We set this one up much like the treasurer or the secretary, where that position reports daily to me, but is after consultation hired, and that would be our current associate judge. We already have that position. She has been in that role for a very long time.
Know it.
There is one section of the charter that references an associate judge, but it doesn't outline that position or who they're hired by or who they report to. So
Okay.
that was a great catch by one of the members of, I don't remember who, but one of the members of the commission.
No, we're good with it. All right.
Everybody good with that? Okay.
Okay. Now, 502. They can stay in office.
So,
This change was just around the state law, correct?
It wasn't around state law, it was around the confusion of
I'm still
term is not expiring in that calendar year.
And I'm still confused though, but because it says that an elected official of the city may continue in such elective office after filing for any other elective office provided by the charter until such time as canvassing of the votes. So at that time.
What
that they-
happens?
Yeah, at the canvassing of votes, does that mean that now I'm not in that seat anymore?
Yes, that is what that means.
Even though I lose or win, I'm not in that seat?
No. If you win, you are elected to that seat.
The new seat.
Yes, the new seat.
But that's not what this says. This says that I am in that seat until you canvass the votes.
Right, but it's because it says no elected official of the city whose term is not expiring shall continue in that seat after filing for office.
After filing.
Until
filing.
they canvass the votes.
They
They're in
can't
that seat
stay.
until they canvass the votes. But then what happens
Yeah,
after they canvass
well,
the
because
votes?
you got elected into it, so you're
But
being
what if I'm
sworn
not
into your new
elected to
seat.
it?
Then you're out, and the new person who did get elected is.
Are you talking about your regular?
At the canvassing, it's very clear who won and who didn't.
But you're not talking about, I thought we were talking about like where the mayor pro tem and or they want to run for a mayor position.
That is what it is, right?
Okay, so if their term is not up in that year, I'm just trying to understand, their term's not up, and they run, but they don't win, then they're out even when they canvass the votes. Is that,
That's
okay, I just want to make sure.
That's correct, yes.
I just want to make sure that was what we wanted to happen.
Yeah, so it's very confusing.
Oh, yeah.
Whose term is not expiring, and there was a lot of question about that. Blake recommended either you can or you can't, right? You can file and stay in your seat, or you can file and not sit in your seat until the election.
Okay.
Every organization is different. The organization I came from, you could, if I was place 3, I could file for mayor, I could run for mayor, and I didn't give up my seat to either become mayor or not become mayor until the canvassing of the votes.
Right.
Okay.
That's
This
what it's
is,
always been.
this
I
is
think.
a tough situation in a small town with a small number of board members, especially because you have 2 east, 2 west, 1 at large and 1 mayor. Hypothetically, all of your seats could say, I run for mayor.
Right.
And if it's you can't sit, we no longer have a council until the mayoral election.
that's right.
So,
Well, if you don't have
that
anybody-
is how we settled on can sit, and we just took out the whole what's a calendar year and just said an elected official of the city may continue in such elective office after filing for, and you have to clarify for elective office provided in this charter, because there are some other laws that apply if you want to run for county judge or something else. So we had to clarify that, but until such time. So if place 3 decides to run for mayor, doesn't matter when place 3's term is up, place 3 can sit in their seat. I'm sorry to pick on you, Jennifer, your name tag's right there. Jennifer could sit in that seat until the mayoral election. She's either going to become mayor or she's not. What this also does is it tends to give staff a little more warning that you're interested in running for a place, so that hopefully when we call the election, we can call everybody at one time instead of then having to have a special election in November, right? If you know you can sit in your seat until the election, you're going to give us plenty of warning, so when we call the election, we can call all the seats we need to call and then not have to have another special election, which every election has a cost associated with it.
Okay, I'm good with it.
Does that make sense, Ken? You're looking at me like maybe it doesn't.
It's crystal clear.
Okay.
Did anybody actually determine the definition of calendar?
Oh, Lord, no, we argued for that about an hour.
Well, there is an strategy opinion, but I guess y'all didn't get it.
I will tell you, the calendar year by definition is January the 1st to December the 31st. So,
I can't imagine it would be something
yeah.
different, but.
Well, because cities follow fiscal years,
And that was
Yeah.
what.
and an election year is May to May, so there are, but the definition of a calendar year is January 1st to December 31st.
The only thing I can think of, say someone on the council decides to run for mayor and they stay on and they lose, in that election, you would think there would be other candidates who might want that job as city council member. If
That's
they
what you
do
would hope.
lose and they run,
That's what you would hope.
that's
And
what,
then
but if they're not, then you would,
you still end up winning.
then the council's back to having a vacant
Yeah.
position.
You do, until you can call a special
You
election.
can call a special election.
That does happen. It could happen.
Yeah.
The hope is with it like this, because you get to sit, and in my experience, when this has happened in my past, they have come up front really quick and said, hey, I'm gonna run for mayor. Go ahead and list my seat. Because you also don't want us to pay more money to have a November election, right? So if you know you wanna run for mayor, you're gonna throw your hat in that ring early enough for us to call one election and it be all the seats that are available.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's the kind of head nods I like, right there.
Just so it's clarified.
This is state law. This is,
902.
you don't, yes, 902, you don't review all plats. If you remember, staff can approve up 1 through 4, right, up to 4 lots, so this falls in line with state law.
That's good. That's easy. Well,
So we just added the sentence. Such planning and subdivision approval shall be in, because they may change it next year.
yep.
One thing I can guarantee, nothing stays the same.
Right.
So the 9.04 looks like it's also bringing
It
in
is
line
state
with
law.
state law.
Yep, the legislature set a 30-day shot clock, and then 2 years later got rid of the 30-day shot clock. It's awesome. Everybody good with 904?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
Am I missing that one?
1002,
Yes.
this was another great catch by one of your commission members. Our charter says no franchise may be exclusive. Yet, our water service is exclusive, and that's a franchise.
Right.
In most cases, your electricity is exclusive, that's a franchise. For us, it impacts our trash. It doesn't say that part of our contract doesn't say you can use a roll-off company that's different at your house. That is not what this is. But what it does say is we will go to bid for a trash service and we will take the best bid, right? And we're going to pick one, because if we don't pick one, no one will bid on that. And then you have different people picking up trash or not picking up trash all over town.
All different color trash cans.
Some trash cans, some not trash cans, some dude with a trailer driving
Orange
around.
ones, blue
We have
ones,
no
green
control
ones.
over the trash trucks. We have no control. So that is why this will be one that is a very important education process, because people won't understand that we are trying to take away their right to pick. But there are just certain things you can't pick, and trash tends to be one of those that we can't leave up to every resident to pick. Our streets will be worse than they are from all the trucks that bang up and down them with trailers attached.
Okay, so this section 1002 will go away from the charter?
It will. Number 3 will be no more.
Well, but there won't be anything other than this, or,
So 10.02, I guess, ordinance granting franchises will be just deleted in entirety?
that's what I mean.
Real quick.
Just go away, wouldn't it?
Well,
Give me 2 seconds. Let me pull it up.
I don't know if there's anything else in 1002.
1002 says any ordinance, there's a number of things in there, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Any ordinance granting, renewing, extending, amending, no franchise shall be granted for a term of more than 20 years. Those will stay. We will just delete number 3. So it will be,
Renumbered.
yeah. I assume they renumber, but I'm not going to, I don't know that answer.
Okay.
So now are we going back to,
4.01.
Can we go back to 305
305.
first? I just want to make sure that I understand.
Okay.
Okay.
So, in the situation that we've had in the last year, where the mayor pro tem has held this position for an extended period of time, isn't it necessary that they retain the duties and responsibilities and the rights as the mayor? I'm not pushing for one or the
No, no,
other,
no.
I just wanna understand before
So,
I say
so
yes
let
or
me,
no.
let me explain this and maybe help understand. So if you pull up section 3.05, mayor and mayor pro tem of the charter. Number 1 talks about the mayor shall be the official head of city government, he shall be the chairman, he presides at the meetings, it goes on. And the last sentence says, he shall perform such other duties consistent with this charter as may be opposed on him by council. And then, when you get to number 2, it talks about the rights conferred upon the mayor, not the duties. In number 1, where it talks about what the mayor does, their duties, and number 2, where it talks about what the pro tem will do for the mayor, it talks about rights and not duties. So it really is, as much as anything, making the language consistent.
Oh.
It will say duties in both places.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Jennifer? Did I confuse that even more?
I just want to make sure that if we do have a situation like we have in the last year, that the mayor, whoever is sitting in that seat, whoever is mayor pro tem, is able to fully carry out
Yes.
those duties and responsibilities. They're not limited by the language in the charter.
They are not.
The only thing
The
they
one
can't
that, the one that describes what the mayor's duties are says duties. For some reason, this one said the rights of the mayor.
Okay.
Except for the veto, they said they don't have the power to
Right, they
veto.
don't, they won't
That's
have
added.
the, yes,
That's the only thing
we're
that-
going to add so that there's no confusion.
And that's the only thing that the mayor pro tem can't do versus the,
Yeah.
the actual mayor is the veto, is what they're saying.
And in fairness, it was something I struggled with. If we have someone acting as the mayor, do they vote or do they not vote? Who decides that, right? If you assume all the duties of the mayor,
Mayor don't vote.
the mayor don't vote. And they will tell you, I asked that question, I was like, I don't understand. If they're acting long-term as the mayor, then why don't they assume all the duties of the mayor? Which means you don't vote, you veto.
Then you have nobody who wants to be mayor pro tem.
That's right. Well,
So-
it's a state law.
No, I'm just saying as a council,
Yeah.
I don't want to be
So-
mayor pro tem, but can't vote.
Yeah,
Nobody's
so
not
that's
voting.
how we, that's how we got, duties was the word, and I'm telling you, we talked about this at a couple different meetings, and at that last meeting, Ann came back and she's like, literally, it says duties in the sentence before. Why does this one say rights instead of duties? So,
I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
I understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not really sure why one said one word and one said another, but it's the duties of the mayor. So, and then, 4,
How you all look at me. So can we ask, I heard from several of these how they feel. Can I ask how these people feel down here about that? About whether we should do no more than 1 year or not do no more than 1 year?
I think that the language that you came up with is appropriate because you never can determine the situation, you never can know the situations. And it puts it in y'all's hands, or whoever's hands, to determine. So I think putting it in the charter of a specific date is not a good idea.
It's just not to exceed that time frame. Because we just have had that in the past, and I just really want a city manager. I mean, why would they want to? Well, there are several that don't require the city manager to live within the city. Other cities, in the state. But Texas, go ahead.
tends to be general law.
Yeah, okay, general law. The home rule does, is what you're saying.
Home
If it is a strong mayor, you tend not to require your city administrator, is what they tend to be called at that point. You tend not to require your city administrator to be there because your mayor is the driver behind that.
I just feel like how long is long enough? that they don't come to my city, they don't live here, they don't see the problems I have, don't feel the way I feel, you know what I'm saying? Be invested in the city they live in. So how long is long? I mean, I see it both ways, and that's why I struggle with it. I don't want to limit myself on one end, but I can't live in the past, but then it's still there, and history can sometimes repeat itself. I just want to do what's best for Gumbel.
But I think that will be a discussion to be had with you guys when you're determining the contract. Because, I mean, we can throw what if this, what that, but it's going to be a discussion.
That's true. So had they put a date in his contract, then it couldn't have changed. It couldn't have been, you know, whatever. Laura, do you have an input?
You would at least have gotten to renegotiate. Reasonable can mean anything to anybody. I think that's Verna's point is, if it had said 8 months, 1 year, 12 months, 14 months, you would have, if as a city manager, I wasn't able to meet that, I have to come back to you and say, I can't sell my house. The market has tanked. I can't sell my house. Are you willing to renegotiate that portion of my contract? Yes or no? But it allows y'all to have that conversation.
And ultimately, y'all will get to decide that together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're limiting yourself.
And that was truly the intent of this, was to allow council, if the charter says a year, it is a year no matter what happens.
I know, but again, I don't want them to say, well, I just bought this house and so I need a couple of years, and then they say, oh, sure, I'll give you 2 years, you know what I'm saying? And that's just not
They
reasonable.
have to
That's
come
not-
back and be able to negotiate that.
So if
I
this
would
goes
hope
to
if
vote
that
and the city
happened,
does
that
not,
the
the
council
voters do
would
not
say
approve
that
it.
you're
Look
not
what
a good
happened.
fit for this
Well,
role.
we're talking about already going in. They're already here. Go ahead.
If
The voters
any
do not
of
approve
these,
if this comes back for another discussion.
it
No.
does not, it's done and it's locked into a reasonable amount of time until such time another commission reviews it.
Yeah.
Which is how many years? Somebody help me, 4 years, yes.
4 years.
That's what I thought.
Laura, did you want to have an input?
Just what we were talking about. Though I do see if you had a council, and because we were all affected by that, no matter if it did happen, then you might say, the council may decide it's okay to do 2 years. And I can see that point. I don't believe that we talked about it that way. We thought if you had the power to negotiate it, you would do the right thing. That's how we.
And they should, I agree. You know, but that council didn't even see the last contract, you know, at all. So it's just, that's the only reason I guess I try to help.
But I would say council not seeing the contract was.
A completely different issue.
Well, we don't even need to
Right.
get into that,
And
because we
that
can't
was
undo
something
it.
else not being done that should have been
Yeah.
done.
It's,
You
yeah.
know, I do think that the way this is worded gives you the strongest negotiating power when you're trying to work out a contract. But it also entrusts the
That we
council to
trust
make a
you.
good decision.
We trust you.
And quite honestly, for me, you know, practically everything in here does the exact same thing. Try to trust council to work in the best interest of the city. If they don't, well, there's an election coming.
Well, the state, that's right, which is what hopefully we did, so that is true. Okay, thank you all.
I need some feedback.
I'm for a term.
Okay, April, still thinking. Jennifer?
Well,
I'm gonna let April's wheels turn.
Can I make one
It does
comment?
matter.
Well, yeah, it does, but I mean.
Who wants to
we
make a
got
comment?
I'd like to make one comment.
Go ahead.
When you put that in there, that means every candidate you have has up to a year.
I heard that, and that's what you said earlier.
That's
But
what
it
I
said,
meant.
yes and no, it's still negotiated by the contract, it just says, but no more than 1 year. So they can read it how they want, but when you negotiate the contract, if I say 6 months, it's 6 months.
Well, if somebody doesn't need a year, you don't give them.
Absolutely, that's the whole point, it's never negotiated in the
Because
contract.
you have the ability to do a year.
You just said you
If they
cannot.
only need 4 months, then give them 4 months.
Correct.
But they have up
So
to a
you're saying
year.
we should put it in the
No, he's saying not
employment
to.
contract, not in the charter?
Yes,
Sorry?
yes.
So you're saying we should put it in the employment contract, but not in the charter?
Well, the charter is the guideline, it doesn't mean you have to put it in the employment contract,
Right.
I don't think, okay?
Right.
Because, like I said, if they need a month, you're not gonna, one of the things that we did all the way through this is we decided, hey, the sooner she gets here, the better.
Yeah.
Because they have to live in the world, they have to deal with the services, they have to deal with everything. So the sooner they get here, the better, and that's the goal. So if somebody comes in, sits down and interviews for a job, and they say, I can get rid of money, don't argue with them.
What I don't want is for a potential city manager to come in and, well, I've already read your charter. I already
That is-
know
yeah.
what your charter says.
Well, they do.
and-
I want my year. That's what
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah, but it says no more than. I mean, it doesn't say they get a year, it
Yeah.
says no more than.
Yeah.
Let's negotiate in the contract, but no more than. So I'm not really worried about that part. I mean, we've got 8 months because we get, it's what you needed,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And I wanted it in the contract. I just thought for a while, maybe I wanted it that way.
One of the other things that we talked about, okay, is that it's not up to just one person whether it gets extended. It's a city council decision.
Yep.
As to whether it gets extended, and that's if need be, and that's the way it should be.
I would prefer to have that negotiating power, as y'all said.
You said that?
I would too.
I'd prefer to have the negotiating power
So do I.
and save that conversation for when we're sitting there negotiating.
I agree.
That's how I feel about it.
Okay.
Ken, want to keep the year?
That's what I would prefer. Anything less, I would vote against it.
I will too.
Okay.
We've seen what has happened in the past. Yes, you can't live by the past, but history has a way of repeating itself.
You could very well.
I agree that the council should be above board, Hoyle and all da-da-da-da-da. That may or may not happen. If it's in writing, it's in writing.
I understand what the concerns are. I completely do. The thing is, and the point that they made was, what Gilbert made was, that what happened previously, according to the charter as it was written before the charter review,
Was
that
allowed.
shouldn't have happened.
Right.
That negotiating power should not have been taken out of
So
the
how would you have
council's.
stopped it? You couldn't
That is true.
Well,
have. No,
Well, at any time,
no,
3 council members could have called a special meeting and said, we want to see the contract
no, you can't.
by the
Because
charter.
No, we could have 3 plus 1. That's a.
Okay, so 4. Well, 4.
Well, we
Okay, if
couldn't
you
get
got
that
the votes, you
done.
can do it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
you could have, there are things, and the question came up, who enforces the charter? You enforce the charter. There are reasons why you can call special meetings, and can you vote somebody off the island? No, but you can absolutely call a special meeting to address those issues.
Well, here again,
May I say something, Mayor?
yes.
If you said reside within the city limits within a year, unless it is stipulated, unless it's stipulated differently in the employment contract, then that way it's within a year.
that just adds in that.
It just adds more
you-
words
You might
to be-
as well
to be
leave
negotiated.
reasonable in there
Yep.
because
Yeah.
you're just leaving, that is just as ambiguous
Yeah, it
as,
is.
as putting
Yeah.
a
Well,
reasonable
1
amount
year
of
is
time.
less, 1 year
But at the
is a
minute you
deadline.
say unless negotiated differently, then the 1 year goes away. So I think that you either add a caveat, no less than, no more than, a minimum of,
Well, I believe this will be an issue because it was raised repeatedly before the election,
Yeah.
and there is one of the reasons why there's been a major change in the membership of the council. And people will look at this as citizens and say, wow, you came back to the same thing that we tried to live under, and it was a disaster. So I think from the betterment of where I stand as a elected official, that's why I would vote for 1 year, because it clearly states what the deadline is and what time you've got.
so Ken, are you saying as negotiated by council or must live here within 1 year?
1 year.
Or, wait a minute, hang on, Rita. As negotiated by council,
But no more than.
but no more than 1 year? Or they must live here within 1 year? Which is it that the language you prefer?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Negotiated by a council, it could be 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months.
Well, we've already said, and I agree with Gary, that anything less than a year, that's not the issue.
No,
It's
it's
longer
not.
than a year is the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was suggesting put it in as a year unless council negotiates different.
Well,
Because then that way they can go, but at least the person who's reading this, who's coming in as city manager, knows it's expected within a year.
well, he did.
It doesn't matter
No, for
what
the
happened
future.
with the last one.
That's for the
Going
future.
forward,
I know,
right?
and that's where I gotta be, you know, I just wanna move forward, and like he said, you know, which is what they did.
His
Don't trust
contract
council,
said
don't
reasonable.
trust the
We are
council, then
purposely
you
getting
shouldn't
rid
do
of the word reasonable because it doesn't outline. So
Okay, let's move on.
we can't move on until I know.
I think it's 3-2.
But which way?
You got the votes to pass at 3-2.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna vote for a term?
I don't, that's where I was,
Well,
that's
we
where I
gotta
was.
move on.
I know, that's what I think I'm gonna say.
You started all this.
I know, let's start the
I had my mind made
conversation.
up.
You changed my mind.
I'm teasing. No, and
If I
that's,
trust the council I have today, I trust. The
here's the
council I have
thing.
today, I would have no doubt that they're gonna do the right thing, and we're gonna be the right person in the right place.
exactly why
But-
we have these conversations is to
Yeah.
talk through it.
Yes, and so that's why, but I did want to try to alleviate what has happened in the past, so it doesn't happen again. Yes, that was the intent of the reason, and behind saying no more than 1 year, because, you know, the way it is now, everybody has their own say, and it's not controlled by somebody else making all the decisions. It says, yeah, we're gonna say 2 years, or we're gonna say, you know, whatever.
May I make a suggestion? It's better to have Blake put in like the comment that says within a year or, and then the council can decide when they get there, the day they vote, whether
No.
to keep it in or get it
That's
out.
It's
Propose
better
it.
to have an idea
Yeah.
because I have to propose ballot language, so that's not correct.
Either or, it doesn't matter.
I just think this will be an issue in an upcoming election for city council members. I'm more than happy to tell anybody how I voted, if I'm up for re-election, that I voted against it.
Yeah.
If the citizens agree with me, then let me be re-elected. If they don't, then elect someone else.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a little bit deeper than just what this says. This council needs to seriously think about what are their responsibilities, and are they really, do they really want to bite the bullet on some hard decisions and be viewed that way by the city? Many citizens have looked at this as a major issue in the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, the word reasonable was the problem,
And it
no
will
question.
be, it will continue to be if this is
Yeah.
worded the way it is. And so I'm just saying, how you vote on this, you live with.
And reasonable is going away, and that word won't be in the charter anymore.
That
What
sounds
will
good
be
to me.
there is council negotiates the length of term.
Which is what we did, you know what I'm saying, that
Yeah.
is what we did.
Yeah.
We negotiated our term, we put in the contract, it's not ambiguous as to when she is to
No,
be here
no question.
full-time. It's no question about it. So
Yep.
again, it's back about trusting the council that you have to do that.
And voting in
And
the
that-
right people that you
that you
feel like
trust.
you can trust.
That's the issue.
It has been in the past, but I can't live in the past, I gotta start living in the future, for the future.
We have to trust that our
That's really so
citizens
upsetting.
I know,
will
but y'all lived
vote
it.
for
Yeah.
people that have the best intentions for the community in all situations. That's just it.
Well, you find 5 people on the same level like that, and you've got a city manager. I mean, you've got a great city.
Better elect them.
Yeah, you better elect them.
And
Okay.
understand, no matter what we do, there is going to have to be a huge education process with this. We can't just leave this up to people to interpret, right? We have to do very much what we're doing. I just spent 9 months educating 70,000 people about charter amendments, 6 charter amendments. I think I told y'all, I went to 42 meetings in 30 days, and I did an hour and 20-minute presentation at each of them about our bond election and our charter amendment election. And we will have to do that here so that people understand this is what we're moving forward with and some idea of why those decisions were made. So we can come back to it again if you want, April. We can go to those that y'all mentioned that we talk about. You want to stew on it? You want to stew on it a couple days? I just need some kind of consensus because I have to bring language forward.
Let's
So.
move on to the next one.
Okay.
We're going back.
All right, I think that's it for the Charter Commission. You guys are welcome to stay. You got to read the next item into the agenda,
Oh, that's
Rita.
right. All right. Hold on. Okay, the discussion is over for 1A.
What's other charter things that we wanted to possibly
Yeah, that's the next, there, it's just for them to mention the ones they might want to. Y'all are welcome to
y'all very
stay.
much.
They may
Yeah,
have
thank y'all.
questions. It may be something y'all have already talked about in detail. That's up to you. But because they know that you read every line of the charter, you are absolutely welcome to stay. Council could hypothetically ask you a question and say, hey, did y'all talk about this and what did you say? But up to you. Eric's like, I'm out.
I'm out.
Thank y'all.
It's dinner time.
Bye. 1B, discuss and/or take action regarding council proposed propositions.
So over the last couple of weeks, I sent all of council an email just because I wanted to be able to do some research, right? So these guys had meetings on meetings. I had time to go talk to the attorney. I had an opportunity to do a little research of my own. I asked each of you to email me things that you might be interested in discussing tonight. We are not limited to these 5 items, but these are the 5 items I can give you some off-the-cuff information about. They are listed there. One is, and I don't know that I have them in order. What's the first one on your list?
801.
Here, she has it.
801.
So it was Section 801. Section 801 currently, I think you guys all got a copy of the charter. So you can flip to that if you want. Basically, Section 801 is the authority, composition, and procedures for boards. The recommendation was to potentially add a number or add it to one of the, or add a number 6 that basically inserts a 1-year gap between being on council and being appointed to a board. Much like if you term out on council or you're not elected on council, you wait, or if you term out, you wait a year before you can rerun. I think if you are not elected, you could rerun in the next election, but if you term out, you must wait a year. So the thought here, the idea was brought forth to add one, and I don't have exact language from the attorney, I just need some feedback from y'all, and then I can do that. Are you interested in adding an item to Section 8.01 that requires a 1-year gap from the time you get off of council until you're appointed for a board? So,
Why does it
Here-
say 4 beside that?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I thought we already had a 4, so I didn't know if we're inserting.
It doesn't
that
really,
two with
number
number
4 doesn't really apply, so I don't
agree,
know.
because it's compensated position.
I don't know why, because that is
Okay.
compensated, I'm not sure why it says that, I did it,
Okay, that's
it
fine. I
wasn't
just wanna make
Janet, I
sure.
sent it that way, but I don't know.
Okay.
But keep in mind, we are going to ask you to align all the boards and commissions at your next meeting. We've talked about that extensively. We would advertise in April, which is volunteer month, we would take applications, we would appoint in September. All board positions would start in October instead of April, December, all over the place, which will make it much easier and much more condensed. So hypothetically, you would leave office in May, and today you could take a board position in October. So this is saying you would leave office in May and you could not take a board position until the following October. Does that make sense?
Well, I don't really have a personal opinion. I did put this on here simply because in 50 years, when they got off, after they served their term on council, then it was just because the boards required a year gap to go on the board again. They assumed council was the same way. And, you know, I don't know if it's right or wrong. I mean, it's not right or wrong either way. It's whatever you want.
It's not me.
So, I mean,
This is,
so right now, I mean, the way it is today is if someone, you're saying, if we're talking about terms out, right? Not because they didn't get reelected in their second term or whatever. You're talking about they term out, having to possibly wait 1 year before they rerun or not.
Yeah.
So my question would be
Well-
then, if that's the case, why would there be a maximum amount of terms if you don't have to wait any particular amount of time?
well,
No, we're not
so
talking about
you
running.
do, if you are a board member, much like council, if you are a board member, this is in, I see it in the Parks and Rec Board.
Yeah.
I believe it says it under each of them.
Oh, so this is talking about going from the
Each
council
board
to
member,
the
this is
board.
talking about going from council to a
different
board.
board.
Yes.
Okay.
This says if you term out as a board member, you must have a gap of 1 year.
Yeah.
The question is, if I get unelected or term out as council, I don't know, unelected's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If I get unelected or I term out, can I immediately join a board? Or do I need to wait a year?
I like the idea of waiting a year, actually.
Just curious for what purpose? I'm just asking. I have no one way or the other. I'm just curious for what purpose.
Well, I would just say in the past, that's the way it was, and we didn't get a choice or opinion.
That's
so-
how you live by.
Yeah.
That's just having an unofficial rule, but that's been that way.
It wasn't actually written, I don't think.
I think to encourage the volunteer pool.
Yeah, that'd be good.
With, going from this to this, and then, okay, I'm done with this term, now I'm gonna run for this, it assumes a small pool of volunteers, which we've
We
kind
already have, yeah.
I'm not opposed to it. I can hear your reasons because I don't have one.
And the other reason that I'd rather not admit, but I will. If somebody doesn't get elected and they have a chip in their shoulder about it, and then they get on a board to exercise that chip.
Well, that's true.
But they have to be appointed by council anyway.
Be appointed
so-
by council.
Yeah, but I guess.
Anyway.
I have no feeling one way or the other. Any
I
thoughts?
think that, I like your deferred time.
Okay.
Just as the boards, just like the board stated, gap of 1 year from service must exist. Is that what you like?
Yeah, I have to figure out where it goes. Y'all, I don't know where this statement goes. I'm not gonna pretend that I do.
Somewhere here, I don't-
So Blake will have to help me find the right place to say if your term limit out of council or you are not reelected to council, you must wait 1 year before being appointed to a board.
I think it's up here.
I'll have to figure out where that goes,
And
so,
is that, just in your, is that normal?
no.
I don't know.
We frequently had council members that termed out or weren't elected and applied to be, but there wasn't any contention in that. I might have, I'll give you a perfect example. We had a council member that served on the senior advisory board for a very long time. She then got elected to council. And then she ended up not doing it, but she would have, had she not had a real estate business, gone right back to the senior advisory board. She was a huge asset to that board. She was a senior, so.
Been around for a while. It could be
So there's a benefit, right? But she served as their liaison. We had council liaisons for every board. She was their liaison. She was up to date on what they were doing. We had a small pool of volunteers for that board. Had she chosen to do that, it would have been an asset. But, so yeah, that's.
Your thoughts?
I'm good with it,
Good with that. Which way?
with there being a 1 year gap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd support that.
Yeah, will do.
Okay, so add somewhere in there. I don't know, y'all. I have to figure it out. I'm gonna have to get Blake to help me with that one.
Well, it's where it talks about your terms on council. It's
Well,
3, 4, 2, or
it does
2-year
that
term,
several
or-
places.
Yeah, I don't know
It
if I
does it
saw
down,
that.
down under 802, and it talks about, but it doesn't talk about terms for planning and zoning or board of adjustment. It just talks for parks and rec and library and fire, and then later in a different section, it talks about planning and zoning. So maybe under 801 somewhere, we can make one statement
Everything.
to clean it up a little bit.
Well, where is it at?
I
Where
read
it's-
it over and over, like,
It's all over the
that
place.
first part, and I was like, no, it's already here, with a
Yep.
minimum 1 year gap being
Yep.
appointed, blah, 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 and then, but then the more you read it, I'm like,
Shouldn't
no,
this
Yep.
that's not what that means.
So it is for sure for Parks and Rec Board,
302,
Library Board,
hold
Fire
on.
Department Board,
different
under Economic Development is all under 802. And then if you go down to 9, Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustment are outlined under 9. So maybe we can find one place to put it for everybody and a
Okay,
clear statement.
302, limitation of terms?
Yes.
You found that? I
Huh?
don't know.
So let me tell you what that is. I have had several conversations with different folks about 2-year terms versus 3-year terms. Your Economic Development Board does have 2-year terms, but it's not uncommon that a board would have a 2-year term and a council would have a 3-year term.
Right.
There are pros and cons to that. One of the major roles of city council is to approve a budget. With a 2-year term, you're elected in May. You 3 and 3, right? Approve a budget, or 2 and 3, whatever. But you get 3 elected in May, you approve a budget in August, and then the other 3 go off the following May potentially. And then you get 3 more, and they have a budget. You know what I'm saying? So there's no consistency in one of the biggest parts of your job, which is approving and overseeing a budget. So that constant turnover can be tough. There are some other things. A lot of times council members come in with something they really want to see done. I'm joking, but I will be serious. Taking out that dang median down there. You might not ever see that done in a 24-month period if you have to work with TxDOT. I probably shouldn't have said that out loud. I'm going to make Janet bleep that out. But that could be something that would be difficult to accomplish if you're trying to work on something statewide, and then it's time to be up for election again, right? So, don't care, throw it on the table.
And are we talking just council terms?
It would just be council terms.
Well,
You would still, and also, you would have a year without an election. You would elect 3 in 1 year, you would elect 3 in the next year, and then you would have a year with 0 elections. So if you ever decide to have a bond election or any other kind of election, you have an off year to have that election, so it's not tied to council members' terms, right? So in my past city, we had 3 years terms. 2021, we had a bond election. 2022, we had a council election. 2023, we had a council election. We were able to have a bond election again in 2024, and it not be directly tied to any of our council members getting elected, right? So if I'm mad about the bond, I'm not voting for you because you're running and that's the bond, right? So there's a benefit to that. Long term, if this city ever wanted to do a bond for any kind of project.
Not under our current structure.
Doesn't matter, but long term, if that was something, so.
well, I don't care which way we go. I want to see what the voters think when you put that out there on a proposition.
And they may not. That's the whole point of this is you guys get to give advice on what you recommend for a lot of reasons. We educate the voters, and the voters are going to vote the way they want to vote. And if they aren't interested, then they're going to say no. And then it's 2-year terms. But it's up to you guys to give a recommendation.
The reason, because I feel like this is kind of important, especially for our little town. We don't have huge voter turnout.
Right.
And the fact that, you have
Every May.
election after election after election, there could be a fatigue element to that. Oh my God, I gotta go vote for the city council people again. Like, there might be some fatigue to that, so that it might help with voter turnout in future elections, and that is the reason that I would be for it.
I also want to lay on the table, this would not impact any of your terms until you are back up for re-election. We have an election in May. We will vote on charter amendments. If this charter amendment got approved, it would take effect in May of 2025. So that's when that would start. So you have an election in 2025, you would have an election in 2026, you wouldn't have one in 2027.
Do the voters approve the whole thing as an enchilada, one enchilada, or?
No. There will be propositions. So there's currently, what do we decide? I can't count. There's 9 charter propositions from the review commission, not 6. I don't even.
You can choose a little bit.
You can. Yeah, they will be able to pick and choose each one.
Weren't there 14 amendments or whatever that were voted on in this last election? There were a lot.
I don't know.
Or constitutional?
Oh, yeah, constitutional, there were a lot.
But I mean,
There were a lot, and then voting for mayor was the last.
But, I mean, you always have that potential. The benefit is you guys have May elections, so you're not doing constitutional. But that happened because we had a November election.
Some of our state representatives, it seems like every time I turn around, Keith Bell's got his name up there for the conservative running again.
and election starts in February. I don't know.
2-year terms.
So, I guess if we changed it to 3 years, which it doesn't matter to me, I guess it just you would term out after 2 terms then?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So
I'm
that would have to
looking.
be changed in the charter too.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That would have to be changed in the charter too, if this gets
Yes.
changed to 3
It
years.
would, they would have to match, so I think it's that same section. It's all within. I am looking, Ken, to see if I can find it.
Well, I don't know that our voters are happy with us as a 2-year term council. I can't imagine them voting another year, but.
More
y'all-
like 30-day terms would be
Yeah.
more like it, I think. That would be stretching it.
Yeah, I don't care if y'all wanna put it out there, I don't care.
The House of Representatives has a 2-year term, I believe.
Yeah, they
And the Senate, you do a lottery, some have 2, some have 4.
Ooh, lotto, I don't know if you win if you get 2 or if you win if you get 4.
Right?
Yeah.
Both.
It's just something if you all are interested in putting that in front, again, you gotta remember, this all goes to the voters and the voters get to make a decision, and do you want them to have that option?
I am happy with letting them have that option.
Yes? Rita?
Yeah.
Ken?
Sure.
Okay, done.
It's not worth arguing over.
309, calling a special meeting. Rita brought this one to my attention.
Yeah.
So if you go down to 309, it says, special meetings of the city council shall be held at the call of the mayor or a simple majority plus 1 of the city council members. A simple majority for you all is 3. And really, 3 is a quorum.
Yeah.
It says somewhere else. So here would be my recommendation, is to change that to say, at a special meetings of the city council shall be held at the call of the mayor, the city manager, or 2 members of council. Then, if you have a simple majority, y'all have a quorum. Plain and
Yeah.
simple. If you've had this conversation and you come to me and say, 3 of us want you just had a meeting,
Yeah.
because 3 is a quorum here.
And someone said a while ago, y'all could have just called a special meeting. No, we couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
It would have taken 3. 3 people could have. So the reason I would ask for you to add the city manager is because I called this one. I can blame it on Brian, I can blame it on somebody, but there's things that come up that Janet and I are like, oh man, we gotta have a special meeting. Allowing the city manager to do that, we're never gonna take advantage of it, trust me. But it does allow us to do things like this. But if you have 2, then with a group of 5 voting members and a 6-member council, you could hypothetically have something like a contract or like anything that you want to bring up, and 2 people could call that a special
That's
meeting.
too big of a contradiction to leave it out.
If they don't like it, they just won't show up, and then you won't have a quorum. So there you go.
I didn't know you couldn't call a special meeting.
I didn't either. I went looking, and so then I went to my charter in Rowlett, and we could, because we did all the time. I mean, there were just things that came up that,
Okay, the
So-
mayor, city
Wait a
manager.
second, all the time?
well, not all the time,
Or-
but for
or
stuff like
2
this, right? Huh?
Council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go with 2.
Anybody have a problem with it saying special meetings of the city council shall be held at the call of the mayor, the city manager, or 2 city council members upon provision of public
I think
notice?
it's good.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay?
Just
Well,
majority
now,
here.
you say city manager, should you say city mayor or city manager? Because you said city
Well, it's comma, city manager.
No, what she's saying, she
or
said.
any 2.
Well, what she said was mayor, the city manager, or any 2 city council members was what you said.
I'm just
loud,
saying-
but-
Yeah.
It's not and, I don't think.
No, it's or.
Okay,
And it makes it complicated, right? Because if you currently don't have a mayor, then it's 2 city council members, right? So it
well,
would
now
be,
the mayor pro tem would that be my duty or a right?
that's a good question that I don't know the answer
I don't know if
to.
it's your duty or your right.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a
think
good
it would
question. I
be.
think at that point it would have to be 2 council members.
But you're one of them, so.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I was just the difference between duties and rights that they were arguing about.
Yeah, I don't,
It's my
the
right.
council doesn't give you rights. The council gives you, the charter doesn't give you a right. The the charter gives you duties. So,
Well, but it said I can do what the mayor does.
except veto.
Except
So
veto.
yeah,
I
so yeah,
agree.
you
I
could,
mean-
we're splitting hairs.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
when Rita came to me and said, hey, we need to have a meeting, we said, all right, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
So, but,
But since
Okay.
you're still a council member, you would still have that
Okay.
You'd have that right on your own without these.
With two.
With another, with another council
two.
Yeah.
person.
Okay.
313, that is a typo, only the mayor, other council members, that is one that, Verna has already fixed.
Oh, good.
She added or, only the mayor or. There are a lot of those, and she fixed all of them along with every single comma.
That's my English teacher for you.
That's what she does. 317, this is one that Rita had asked me about. This is the last one that I got in advance. It doesn't mean I will ask you to consider one more that's not on this piece of paper that came up to me while I was sitting here. The question was, under 317, it outlines investigations by city council. Can't talk. And it says that the city council shall provide by ordinance penalties for contempt or failing to refuse. It says that the council can subpoena. It says the city council shall have the power to inquire into the official conduct of any department, agency, office, officer, or employee. For that purposes, city council shall have the power to administer oaths, subpoena witnesses, and compel the production of books. In this case, subpoena means ask for, right? It is just the legal word for you can require someone to give it to you. And if they do not, then you could hypothetically take action against their employment. So subpoena is the correct word because council can subpoena me to provide monthly reports or personnel documents or whatever.
But would we have to go to court to do that?
You would not have to go to court.
Our city attorneys advised us that we did not have the authority to issue one.
I think y'all talking more of the legal.
You're talking
we
more
are.
than legal.
We are.
In this case, this word means that you can, subpoena means just ask for them.
Is it like a civil, is there another word for it? Or, I mean, you say it's a word, but is it civil subpoena or,
Employment?
I asked that question, and he said, Angie, I think you might be splitting hairs on the word subpoena, which just means require somebody to give
Because we
that
all
to
know
you.
what because subpoena, right? Because subpoena means you have to do something.
well, it's
Right.
By a court of law
Yes, it's
for
a legal,
something.
it's a
Yeah.
legal term, really.
But I think what she's saying here is we're not by the court of law, but we are requiring
So
this
it's
person
really
to
a verb.
provide whatever that is.
It's not a noun, it's a
Yes.
verb.
Is it a
and
civil subpoena? That's my question.
It is not, because that would be a noun. It is a verb meaning summon. That is why that word is used. So if you pull it up in the dictionary, and there is a noun, which is a writ ordering someone to do stuff, or there is a verb, you can subpoena, which just means you can summon.
Well, I like summoned witnesses better.
So,
Yeah,
Subpoena, when you say subpoena, I don't care, anybody's gonna say, oops, we're going to court, or we could go. What you're really saying, you can, a summons.
yeah, that's basically it. So,
I think that's a better word.
you want to change it to, I don't care one way or the
I'll put it on
other.
your calendar. I agree with Ken.
Uh-oh. Let me, wait a minute.
Yeah, hold on.
No, there's no
Wait, can I get that? Oh, we got that recording. We do have that recording.
Well, I mean, I just brought it up because.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, this word's been brought up before,
Yep.
Yeah.
discussions.
Yeah.
The other thing Rita brought up is who enforces the charter. And Blake and I had a conversation about that. Council enforces the charter.
Correct.
So if at any time, again, I go back to, you can't dethrone someone, you can't de-elect them. But, for instance, if Cindy broke the ethics that is outlined in the charter, it would be the responsibility of the other council members to bring that to the dais to have a conversation about. I had a council member in Rowlett who broke the ethics policy. He took the information that was stated in I may have told you all this, he took the information that was stated in an executive session and used that information to rally some employees, right? Shared not the exact words, but the gist of what was done, and then worked with our attorney to have an ordinance written, and then shared that said ordinance that he had discussed in private with our attorney with some of our employees. And it had to do with our judge, and there were no real consequences for his action, but public humiliation. And they wrote a letter, and they agreed to publicly humiliate him by reading that letter and informing the public of the action they took. So that's why two can call a special meeting, right? So if someone breaks the charter and the guidelines that are set out by that, two council members, or even what it was, 3, could have called a special meeting to address that.
Well, how do you call a special meeting with 3 council without breaking?
No, I'm just saying that's what this said.
Yeah.
This said it took 3, whatever. Ours said the same thing, Rita. Ours said you need 3, you need 4 people to call a special meeting. We just did this in Rowlett. Ours said you had to have 4. 4 is a majority. That's just what charter said. I don't know why. Ours was the exact same way. We just changed that in the last election in May of 2023 because that was the one we had, and we changed it to 3 because 3 in Rowlett was not a majority. So
We need to.
they
I think
could.
it also means that for other reasons other than, like that, I agree with what you're saying, you can't kick someone off the island, even if you want to, or whatever, there's no real, but for other things, like if
Yep.
I know we're keep beating this thing to death, but I know where they're going with this, is had that reasonable, not been reasonable, called a meeting, how would that have changed the outcome? You said, how would you
Yep.
enforce that at that
Yep.
time? How could they have done that? They'd have called a meeting.
They would have called a
said
meeting
is- this is
and
fine.
said, we define reasonable as you have 6 months and we're done.
Yeah, something like that.
Council could have determined what reasonable was in anyone's, in my employment contract and anybody's. You could, because it was at that point a contract negotiation, you could alter his contract to say whatever you wanted. Any employee, right? So the last thing I will ask that you consider, only because I have heard this and I had forgotten until right now, is relationship of board members when they serve in an advisory capacity to city council.
Agreed.
But I don't know what that means and I don't know where that's at. So I will do some searching.
Yeah, it's not.
What's that?
There's something.
So-
Oh, go ahead.
No. So for instance, I'm gonna pick on Cindy.
See?
Council, and there's also the issue of serving on multiple boards, right? So you have a number of members that serve on EDC and serve on planning and zoning.
Right.
Hypothetically, you could approve a project on planning and zoning that benefits the EDC.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Same with relationship, right? And I'm not picking on you and Roy, please know that. But how does that work? Should Jennifer's husband serve on P&Z? Should Ken's wife serve on Parks?
Okay.
They're making advisory, they're making recommendations to city council that city council then has to approve, and is that a conflict of interest?
Absolutely.
All I'm asking you to do is talk about that. I don't have an opinion, I promise.
Absolutely. I already think it is, in my opinion, a
Now,
conflict.
I don't know where it goes.
It is a problem. I mean, and I have obviously a number of family members that are, but again, we have such a small pool of people in this community that are willing to step up, and so it's really difficult to say no, and
Yeah.
it,
And is that something you just want to wait until a future, 4 years, maybe you have a larger pool, maybe some of the changes we make give you a larger pool? Is that
Yeah, but it's
something?
kind of like saying, if that's the case, then we're not gonna put the 1-year waiting period because we need a larger pool. The whole point was to
Yeah.
not have that so we can get a larger pool.
Yeah.
So we can go out there and start asking people and getting more people involved when there's a need.
No. And I would have to ask, is there a certain, I don't know the answer, y'all. I have never seen that in a charter, but I've never also worked in a city where so many people are. Jennifer's right. You tend to have your council members, their family want to be the most involved, no question.
Yeah.
And are there some roles that are more important than others? I don't know that.
I think so. I
So,
think it wouldn't make a difference if you're on the park board and maybe that's P&Z, for example.
And
I mean,
maybe
would that
it's-
make a difference, you know
yeah.
what I'm saying, versus when you're doing you're down here and you're like I said, making recommendations to the council, that's a little bit
Yeah.
different.
I think, for us, being that he's an attorney, we had that rule in place, he was, working for a private practice, I worked for the DA's office.
yeah, that's what
Oh,
Roy
yeah.
said. I said, will you tell Cindy that? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
He's like, our entire life married, we could not come home and talk about work. I was an attorney. I couldn't tell her. She worked for the DZA. I was like, she couldn't tell me. We don't talk about work, period. Like, that's our rule, right? But that is a unique situation where you both have had that experience. Is that something that you want me to explore or is that something you want to wait on? And it's two-pronged. One is serving on 2 boards that could potentially have a conflict. I only see one situation where that is P&Z and EDC, where EDC offers a performance agreement, and then P&Z has to approve that project before. But again, you have the safeguard of council is still there to have the ultimate say, right? So there is a safeguard there. And the other is, for lack of a better word, nepotism among boards and councils. And this wouldn't affect anybody sitting in a seat right now. It wouldn't go into effect until October of 2025. So,
Yes.
I don't even know where in the charter that goes. I have to ask Blake. My brain is swimming with all these words.
Are we gonna put anything in here about code of ethics?
Other thing you can talk about? Let's stay with me with this one. That might be where it goes, Ken, is the code of ethics. You all have a bit of a code of ethics somewhere, back. Article XIV 14 is nepotism, prohibitions, and penalties. So you have nepotism there, that might be where it goes. You have equality of rights, you have wrongful influence, you have wrongful interference, you have indebtedness to the city, you have conflict of interest. So you have a little bit there of your ethical policy.
Well, yes, but code of ethics is, we have a statement on code of ethics that, you will be nice, you'll pet your neighbor's dog good, but there's no enforcement.
Yeah,
That's the part, that was always the issue.
Talking about for board members?
anybody.
Well, it should be all employees. All employees, I think.
So employees are relatively easy, right? Because hours are outlined in
Employees have
our.
no protection from any, where do they go if they've got a problem? They have nowhere to go in the city to file a complaint.
For our employees, that's outlined in your personnel manual.
Yeah, so it's not very good, I think. And we adopted a code of ethics, the council did.
They did.
But when you look at it, there's no teeth in it.
Exactly.
And
Now, is this something that we should put in the revised charter? Probably should. Something to say that we recognize the need or importance of a code of ethics or something. You don't have to put it in here, but right now, there's nowhere. And of course, if you don't have a code of ethics, if you have a code of ethics and you have no way to enforce it, when a citizen files a complaint, a code of ethics complaint, whatever it is, saying, look, I've looked at your list of 10 or 12 items here, you're just not living up to it, and I want to file a complaint, where does that complaint go and how is it handled?
So we're still talking here about council, so I'm asking.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's the same, right? You guys can't, the citizens speak to that when they go to the polls again, right?
Well, that's right, but I'm not sure that that's the best way to handle it. Most cities, most organizations have a code of ethics. They have procedures for enforcing it.
And your city for city employees does as well, and a method for enforcement. But for council, the only enforcement is either public shaming or de-seating.
It's re-election,
That's what happens.
Recall re-election is only,
Yeah.
that's the only authority
And
council
that's
has.
driven by your public.
That's the only authority we have as a
Yeah.
council member.
So you're going to do it in a, much like I said with my council member. They wrote a letter, they said, we want you to know that we believe your behavior, they voted on it, your behavior is not becoming of what we are, that is not how we act, and they made that vote.
Well, I've looked at a lot of cities that have these, and they're quite extensive.
So a lot of them call them out. You've heard me say this before in your in your rules and procedures. And your council, your charter allows you to develop a rules and procedures. I have also talked to the mayor about that. He wasn't around when we first had that conversation. I sent you what Rowley's looks like. It's very detailed on what the code of ethics
Yeah, I looked
is.
at it.
Section 313 allows you all to conduct meetings in accordance with the generally accepted rules of parliamentary procedures. You could add a statement there that by resolution, council could adopt a rules of procedures that takes all of that one step further. And I showed you, that's what the Rowlett Charter said, is by ordinance, under rules of procedure, there is a solid number that says, by ordinance, council can adopt, I can pull it up maybe.
Well, that's just why I'm asking, this is what we're lacking.
Yeah, so that might, Rowlett Charter.
I think
That-
we've already got ordinance.
Huh?
We've already got ordinance.
Resolution.
Huh?
For ethics?
Yeah.
It's a resolution.
Oh,
You do.
resolution? Oh, okay.
Let me see real quick, I can find it, give me 2 seconds.
But it was tabled, I believe it was recalled.
No, it was not repealed.
Tabled?
It did
Okay.
not win. It did not get repealed.
No, it
No.
was not repealed?
Uh-uh.
The Code of Ethics?
Give me 2 seconds, let me
Probably
find
didn't talk
this.
about it, but then citizens' comments, we just.
Okay, I thought it was.
I double checked, 12. Give me 2 seconds.
But again, my question is, and I mean, I get we have a code of ethics, and I feel like we already have one anyway, and I
You
feel
do.
that sometimes some people violate that already, but there is no consequences for that.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But doing what you're doing, there's still gonna be no consequences,
Yeah.
because there's nothing that you can do, or say, or whatever, other than publicly shaming that person, or
That's
at the polls. So you can have a 16-page drawn-out code of ethics, but at the end of the day, the only thing you can do is shame them, or go to the polls with it, right?
And by being very
Currently,
public and by being very public with whatever the issue it is, by writing that letter, by bringing it up on the
That's how
dais,
your
like,
public knows.
That's how they know when they go to the polls that this person may not align with whatever we decide our values are.
But many
Yeah.
cities have citizens committees that they'll take a look at it, they'll have a committee that'll come back with recommendations on what could be done.
But what can be done?
There's nothing
Well,
that can.
that's what I'm saying, on the city charter, there's only 2 things that can be done: recall or vote them out.
Yeah.
This is what I've pointed out to some people before. What is our authority in this issue? You know, you can't bring anything to us and say, he or she's gotta go.
Yeah.
You know, you can't, we don't. have
State law, I don't know that state law would allow you to vote out a council member. I think
And
state
that would
law
be
says.
super unethical,
yeah.
because that makes everything everyone does is, political.
Yeah.
I don't like this person, or,
Yeah.
I don't like the way you voted on that particular issue, like,
And
it's
that
just
happens,
too-
yeah,
It's.
it happens.
It's for the people, by the people, and the
Yeah.
people put them in the seat, whether we like it or not, even if we regret it later,
They
they're
can
still
recall
there.
them if they want.
And then, like I said, you can either recall.
You guys can bring it for a council member, you can bring it to the attention of the public, because you have to remember, your public doesn't always see everything that you see in your day-to-day interactions with each other and at meetings and all of that. And so, at a meeting, you could bring it to, and then the public has to take it from there and either not re-elect or ask for a recall.
I don't want that authority.
Yeah,
I don't.
It's
I
tough.
don't
I
want
wish-
to sit and say.
I'm not sure the state would even let you.
Yeah.
I wish sometimes that there was, maybe not a recall or an election, but I wish there was penalties of some
Yeah.
sort. I don't know what those would be.
Yeah.
But they would hold people more accountable to know that, I better not do that. I'm gonna get myself in really some trouble, other than, what they're gonna do to me.
Yeah.
You know,
We-
so I wish there was,
yeah.
but if there's not.
We
I
went through
just
that
don't-
entire thing when that council member shared bits and pieces of what was an executive session. He did not break the law. He teetered on breaking the law, but he did not. But he did break their code of ethics, which is we
Don't
we
say
don't
anything.
share with other employees. We don't go into the populace. The mayor, the city manager reports to us. That's who you talk to, and that's not what happened.
I wish there was.
What the Rowlett Charter says is city council rules of procedures and attendance at meetings. The city council shall by resolution determine its own rules or procedures and procedures for compelling the attendance of its members. Right? So you guys, I think, have one in there that says, hey, if you miss this many meetings so that gave them a lot of flexibility to be able to, the code of ethics and the different stuff.
Okay, I know we don't want to go in the past, but, the last time I don't even know if it was 6 or 8 months ago, there was so many people slamming each other, and then they expected council to come do something about it.
Yeah. And there's nothing you can do
I mean-
except make a public statement that the behavior doesn't fit your code of ethics or your rules of
But
procedure
this
or
is a
whatever it is.
citizen. This is a citizen,
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about a citizen.
and, I mean, a citizen making,
Takes all kinds.
yeah. And then the mayor would throw them in the trash can, the complaints
Yeah.
that was filed.
You really can't file a complaint against a citizen. They don't.
No,
they're
she's
not-
talking about the citizens were filing complaints, and then the mayor, at the time, would throw them in the trash.
Yeah.
Again, that's where two council members get to call a special meeting and say,
If it does. if it
where's the
passes.
complaints?
Yeah.
We know they're filing them, we're hearing from them, here's a copy of what they filed. As a council, then you get to have that conversation.
Okay. If we
And
get
if the
passed.
public want them recalled, then they have to go through those steps to do that.
And does this apply also to, committee members?
I would think so. I don't know that I read the code of ethics that close. They should have to, if city employees have to abide by it, board members should have to too. We can make sure that it says that.
I would like it to, it seems to me,
Let me look real quick and see if,
a committee member that
y'all are gonna
was
ask me to scan real quick.
openly bad-mouthing the council, the city, I mean, not, if they're gonna be on a committee, they've gotta be supportive, in my opinion. And if they're,
Well, here's the reality. Board members, you can unappoint them. Those are appointed by you. You can at
Right
any
now.
time come in and say, you are not exhibiting behavior appropriate of a board member, you're no longer on the board. This council can make that decision at any time. Because you appoint them, you can unappoint them, for any reason.
Is that just majority or super?
Ken, I'm looking and I don't know. I can't read that
I
fast.
think it's, majority. Well, I mean, what we're talking about here is describing the world and giving 3 examples, and you can talk around this forever, but.
Yeah. I'm looking to see if it says,
So really, we have a code of ethics, they can file a complaint, but then there's no procedure for it. And at the end of the day, you can't,
There's only 2 options that we as a council, that's what's kind of difficult for us as a council. People need to realize what authority as a council we really have and don't have.
yeah.
Or
A
what the
lot of it's
people-
what we don't
And
have.
mostly
And
don't
that
have.
comes down to educating your citizens on what the role of council and each individual council member, what they can and can't do.
yeah, I'll have to look at I will ask that question if it says in here about boards. I don't see it right off the top. That doesn't mean it's not in here, y'all. I'm trying to scan through 432 pages.
I thought you were speed reading.
I'm good at it. I, after 3 years, have almost mastered picking up key points without reading every word, but,
Okay, would you read the resolution on our ordinances or the ethics that we passed?
code of ethics?
Yeah.
And
see
that,
what
I
you-
believe, is just for council, but I can verify. I've
Yeah,
seen
did
it.
you
I
check
pulled it
board
up.
members?
Was it board members? So,
We've had every board member besides charter review sign
yeah.
that they've received that.
Yeah, so that's where you would, if you wanted to remove one, council would ask to have that put on an agenda, and
It was just a few months before.
I think that's the other thing. I'm not sure your charter outlines who can put something on an agenda. I mean, while we're talking, that's kind of what your rules or procedures do, so if you add something about making rules or procedures, can anybody put something on an agenda? Does it take, it takes 2 to call a special meeting, but who can add an item to your agenda? Does it?
I thought it
It
did.
says
Okay.
it there on the
Yeah.
form, who can.
Yeah.
It does, it's council, mayor, city manager.
Does that in your charter?
One mayor.
Will they be allowed?
Yeah, okay, that's,
But I
y'all,
really thought that, and back to this, ethics thing, and we're gonna drop it. I'm almost sure that at a later, meeting, we have to go to the minutes that was tabled. So I don't think we have anything enforced there.
It was not. We looked.
I think what you're thinking
I will
of.
look too.
We
Yeah.
came back at a different.
She pulled it because I said this was repealed and she said, no, they didn't. She said they didn't table it, they did vote.
Yeah.
And there weren't enough votes to repeal it.
I don't remember it even
She
coming
pulled the
back
minutes.
to
Oh, I
the
didn't know
bill.
it was a vote. I didn't think it got that.
What was the date of those minutes? Anybody know?
I can send it to you
Yeah,
if you want.
she's got it.
Yeah, I'll look
Would
it
you
up.
mind sending it to all of us?
Well, no, it was passed when the mayor was here.
Yeah.
Yes, and we brought it up one other time, but then we had citizens' comments that came up and it just kind of sidetracked it, and I don't think we did anything, but we were trying to repeal it, I thought, at that point.
I thought it had been. I was told it had been, so I had Janet pull it for me.
I don't think it ever went
And
to a
she
vote.
said
I
no.
didn't think it even went to a vote.
Yeah, I don't know.
didn't
I
think
thought,
even
I
went to
thought
a
it
vote.
had.
But
'cause we
either
looked
or.
at it.
Okay,
We'll look.
yeah.
Janet has it, so she can send it, because she pulled it for me. Anything else that are you interested in adding an item to the charter to allow you to set up a set of rules or procedures? You have a little bit of that, you don't have it mapped out exactly. It says that you may,
We might want to look at the pay scale again.
yeah, right, you can do that too. It just says the city council shall conduct its meeting in accordance with the generally accepted rules of parliamentary procedure. The mayor and council may establish rules by reference to a published source such as Robert's Orders or Democratic Rules of Orders. Only the mayor or other member of council shall enforce such rules.
I thought that we did ask the committee to look at, did the committee look at all about, anything about what we're talking about here? Putting the words in the charter amendment?
About what?
Code of ethics.
Oh,
I have this.
Nothing?
it never came up.
Can I have
Okay.
this? That's pretty.
So,
We didn't ever say it.
yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you.
Well, if you'll just check it out and
Yeah, we can,
give
like
us some.
I said,
opinions.
Janet pulled it for me because I was told it
Yeah.
had been repealed.
No,
And so Janet pulled it along with the minutes to show me that it hadn't, and we actually even looked at the vote at that meeting to make sure it hadn't. I'm almost positive.
I might have slept
And it
through
did
that.
not have enough votes to be repealed, so.
We'll send it out.
But she can pull it up, and verify. Anything else, other than being tired and your brain hurting?
Did we come to whatever conclusion we need to come to about?
City
the
manager.
verbiage About city
It's
manager?
the only one left.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Oh, I thought we passed on, I thought we had got that settled.
No,
Oh, y'all gonna discuss
we
that? or-
decided we would, I mean,
Right now, it's 2.5 over there.
I know, I was thinking, thanks, I was trying to get out of here without having to say something.
Gotta have it.
Well, it is so hard, let me just say this. It is so hard to sit here and listen to so many people that did not experience what we did.
I understand, Rita.
No, you don't. I'm telling you, you don't. You can say you do, and you could have done this, or this is what caused this. No one knows unless you were there.
Y'all were completely blocked from performing your duties as city council members. I know that.
Well,
That didn't have to do with the word unreasonable, though. That had to do with
the type of
a
people.
person
Yeah.
that was bringing you contracts late or not allowing you. And that, again, two people can say, stop, we want to talk about this at meeting.
How could we have done that when we couldn't get anything on the agenda? No, we couldn't.
3 people could have called.
wouldn't have put it on there.
I
No.
can't do anything about that then, yeah. I mean, that's your city manager, right? That's your city
Yes,
manager
that's
who,
true.
and it doesn't go through the mayor. I mean, that would be my argument to you is 3 people at that point could have gone to Janet and said, we want a special meeting and this is what we want it on.
And she would have had to buck the mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and cost her a job probably.
So, I
But
don't.
anyway, again,
I'm
You're
just
gonna
saying.
have those, I mean, every city has those circumstances from time to time. They have a mayor with a strong personality, and your city manager can fight that or not fight that, and as a council, your out is you have to call a special meeting, and you by right, by charter, can do that.
And look at how much progress we've made.
By charter, you
Since-
can call a special meeting. He
Where's
can
that
throw all
at?
the fits he wants,
Where is it at in the charter?
that you can call a special meeting.
Yeah,
It's under meetings, we just talked about it.
how many people you gotta have?
2. Right now it says
No.
3.
Right now, it says 3.
3.
Hold on.
3.
Meetings of the city council. Special meetings of the city council shall be held at the call of the mayor or a simple majority plus one of city council members upon provision of public notice.
Simple majority.
That's four.
Plus
Squad.
one.
Right. It was 4.
Okay,
So,
wait a minute.
That's one of the ones that never called.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, because we had 1 and 2 in his pocket.
I can't do, yeah. I
So
mean,
we could not have called a special meeting.
yeah.
I'm just telling you that.
But anyway, so back to this. And that's what's hard for me, is I just don't want the city to ever be put in a situation like that. I'm trying to protect the city, to make sure that the city manager comes and stays and be here whenever they need to be here for the city. That's the intent of the charter. That's what people want, is the city manager to live within the city.
Sure.
And 1 a year is a really long time. I mean, it really is a really long time to get someone to give them time. But I get, sometimes it could be 12 months or 13, 14 months, you know.
And the
or-
reality is your city manager is never gonna drag it out longer than they have to. They wanna be here too.
No, they don't. I mean, I'm sorry, Angie. He knew when he bought the house.
I can't do anything about Jim.
I know. Y'all are telling us, sitting here, what we could have done.
I'm not
or
saying what
this
you
or
could have
that,
done.
and it, no, we couldn't have done it. And he knew he wasn't ever gonna buy a gun barrel. He wanted land when he got here, and that's where he ended up in Athens. So there's nothing we could have done.
I think what we're trying to do is just, for the future,
Yeah,
have some things that are firmly in writing,
Yeah.
that future council members can go back and refer to.
yeah,
And say, this is what we can do, therefore these are things that we cannot do.
right.
And without putting that specifically in the charter, it's up to interpretation.
Yeah.
And interpretation is where you get into real problems.
Yeah, the only thing I would argue, and I will argue against you with this, Rita, I love you, and you and I know that, but if you couldn't call a meeting, you couldn't have enforced a year either.
Well, no, we couldn't. have
That's what I'm
forced it.
saying, right?
Yeah.
So that
It
plays
was
back. If
nothing.
you couldn't have called a meeting, you couldn't have also enforced that it said a year.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the people would have known. it
but
was
the
a year.
people knew that you could call a meeting and they
No,
didn't
they
enforce
didn't.
that. I mean, it's in the charter, right? That just playing devil's advocate, I don't care,
I
y'all.
know.
Y'all know I don't care, and I hope you don't have to hire one for a really long time.
Me
Me
too.
either.
So I hope it doesn't
I'll
matter.
put that in the writing.
Yeah.
But I also can't sit here and say, oh, y'all should do this, but
Well,
that's.
I just know where we were at,
Yeah,
and I don't want any council to ever have to go through what we went through.
It was
To be
wrong,
right.
Rita.
I mean,
Yeah,
to just
no
be
question.
right.
It
I
was
mean,
wrong.
But of course now, I mean, we're already gotten past that, and instead of leaving it as reasonable, that says that it has to be defined in the contract. So the first thing is you have to make sure it's in the contract. You know,
Yep.
that it is part of the contract, that it has a date that says this is your due date, this is your date, right here.
and the charter says that the council has to approve the city manager's contract.
Okay, well, we're not gonna, there is no sense in sitting here for another 2 hours. No, there's not. We didn't even we had to fight to get his contract 6 months later. So,
can't help
I
it.
mean, you can't do anything about that either.
You couldn't do anything, my
No.
point though, Rita, is if you couldn't enforce that, you couldn't enforce the year either.
You know, okay,
I know, we're just trying to decide right now, the point where we're back to, sorry that we've circled all the way around 100 times, is do we want it or do we not want to say it must be, however, within no more than 1 year.
well, that's mine.
I could vote yes, we do.
And you have 2 yeses and 2 nos, and
Yeah,
how can,
so
I'm
what?
like,
And your mayor doesn't get a vote, so it's not gonna do one bit of good to ask him.
Think it over.
Yeah, okay.
I just want, like I said, I know, I just want to do it, but a years are a really long time. But then again, I don't want people to think they have a year to get here either. I mean,
They don't have a year, they got who they want to.
Well,
But
it's really not
that's-
that long. She's looking at a new house in Rowlett and relocating down here.
Yeah, she's already been here. I mean, she has really till June of next year,
Yeah.
but she's here.
Well, that's what I mean. If any city manager wants to be here, they'll make concessions.
They will make
like she
concessions
does.
to be
Yes.
here, and they
I
will,
mean, that's it.
and try to live here.
But that, I think, is exactly Cindy and Jennifer's argument is, we're not giving them a year, we're saying we're going to negotiate it in their contract.
Well,
We're arguing, we're not giving you a
Negotiating
year.
power.
Yeah. That's council's negotiating power to do. I think that's their
The only
argument.
more power,
want council-
the only more power you have is over 12 months. That's the only power you have. You have no more of the power for less than 12 months
If
than
it
you
says
have
1
right
year.
now.
If it
The
says
only
1
thing
year.
it gives you is to you to get say, oh, I give them 14 months or 18 months or 24 months to get here.
Yeah.
And then the question then I have to ask you is, why in the world do you want to give someone 2 years to get here when we need somebody here in our city now?
Yeah.
So
And
that's the only reason why. So you really
I
should know
will
less
tell you
power.
that city managers looking for jobs, go to your charter and see what your residency
Yeah.
requirement
As
is.
they should.
100%.
Absolutely.
They're going
So
to
so
go
he
and
knows
look.
if I can do that or not before I even apply
Yep.
to do that.
100%.
Yeah, I'd say anybody not willing to do that need not apply.
Well, because that was our first thing. We will ask them, are they willing to move?
That was the
And
first
if they're
question
not,
we
then
were
they're,
asking.
they're not even considered.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that your city manager is going to look at that and
Yeah.
they're going to negotiate based on, well, it says you have the right to negotiate up to a year.
Right, and I do have the right, up to a year. So I can say 6 months, 3 months,
Yeah, you
9
could.
months, or 12 months, but I can't do more than a year.
But you
I
can't go
do-
13 months.
Yeah, I can't go 15 months, I can't go 18 months, I
All
can't
right,
go
you're the only
24.
holdout. You'll just have to call her or
All
tell her to do
right,
it.
I'm sorry, I don't know why I feel like 1 minute I'm like, I know what I'm doing, I'm saying no. Then I'm like, I don't know.
You have-
It's like the budget for animal control, they're tough, sometimes they're tough.
It's not that I have a problem making a decision, I'm going to make the right decision.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, right? You have to remember, you're not making a decision based on the last person, or you're making a decision for the future and for the future councils that are in front of you
Right.
to have the right to negotiate what the charter says, right? Either they can negotiate up to a year, or they have the ability as a body of 6 to negotiate what is right for the city at that time.
6 or 5?
5. I mean, your mayor is in there negotiating,
I just
right?
asking. I didn't know if you had a vote, I'm just asking.
Hypothetically,
I hadn't had a mayor until now, really, but
hypothetically,
no.
you could designate your mayor to negotiate that contract
know.
solely.
Well, he did, and then.
I don't want to talk about what that one
Well,
did.
no,
Yeah,
that
I
was
get
a
it.
problem. That was a problem.
But council still has to approve it. Right, wrong, or
Okay.
indifferent,
Do we have an
Rita?
adjournment?
We adjourn?
Yeah. Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Or
You're
adjourn?
gonna call me and tell me what you decided.
7:25.
Do you have like a minute now, like it has something?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, we're still recording, hold on.
Okay.
If we're adjourned.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, y'all.